Robopapa.
Hey guys, today what I'm going to show you is how to use packets within Visuino and how to um, set them up, and then in the other side actually consume them using a Delphi program that will listen to the ComPort and will basically read that information. So what I have over here is Visuino with Arduino Uno already connected. Um, we will focus on the serial input where we actually will drop data into that. We'll start with a very simple thing and we'll move to a little bit more complex. So to start off, we'll just take a text value um, that we'll be able to output to the screen. And the text value is just taking a text value and we'll connect the output of it to the serial input. So our string will be hello world, and we'll just connect that. So if we'll run this program right now and we will connect via the Visuino, we will see an output over here. So let's try that now. And calling the Arduino, we're uploading this. Now that it's done uploading, I will connect, and I'll need to restart the Arduino. And you can see over here is output hello world. So that's one way to do that, but it's very simple. So let's try to generate a clock. That way it will output hello world in an interval. So to do that, we'll do a clog generator. And we'll just go with the default, which is frequency 1, and we'll connect the clock to clock. And we'll upload that to Arduino. You just can't see on my other screen, but it's basically running right now. And now it's done. I will connect. So now we can see hello world in an interval. So now that we have this going, let's open the Delphi software. And there's some packages from Mitov software that I downloaded into the Delphi Studio. And I will post links to all of this in the description below. So in order for us to start, we'll start a new VCL project. And the first thing we will want to drop here is what it calls ComPort. And that's actually a component that allows us to communicate with a COM port itself. And we know that the Arduino is on COM4, and the baud rate, well, the speed is 9600, which is fine. But that's by itself will just consume those outputs, but we'll not be able to output it to anywhere here. So what we want to do is actually use a terminal, which is kind of like what we see with Arduino, the terminal output. So now that we have these two components, we can go into the open wire, and you can see, just like with Visuino, we have those blocks. The output of the COM port, we want to connect it to the input of the terminal itself. That way, the output of it will come into the terminal. So if we will run this, and we did everything right, we should be able to see an output in the terminal right over here. So before I do that, I need to disconnect from Visuino itself, and let me run it again. And now you see the hello world is actually coming out in here. So now we have the Arduino using the Visuino software outputting into serial, and that's being consumed from another software which is using Delphi with the ComPort. So this is all nice and good, but what happens if you have multiple items that you want to generate and send that through the serial? So let me stop this. This is where the packets are actually coming handy. So I have an example over here, that way you don't need to see me dragging and dropping certain things. Um, so here's a packet, and all you need to do is just search for packet, and you have it right over here, the packet and unpack it. So the packet is basically taking the values that you're generating for it, packaging it as a binary, and sending it through the terminal itself. The unpack it can actually read the serial binary and then do the reverse engineer. Now, the way it's being done, when you click on the packet, you will see that you have the head marker over here. And the head marker is basically kind of like TCP packages that has the header information to tell the parser what it needs to parse and how. This is what it basically does also. So when you click the header marker on the byte, you can enter any value that you want. I can up to like FF, I believe. So it's a hexadecimal value. And I can continue like this as much as I want. But for this exercise, all I did is I just chose the first byte is 1, 2, the second byte is 3, 4. And that's identifying this packet header. Then what I did, I clicked this wrench. That way I can get to the elements. Or I believe if you double click on this, it will give you as well. And all I chose was an analog value, an analog binary, so we'll convert it to a binary, and a digital binary. The analog binary I connected with a sine wave. So it basically just be a regular sine, goes up and down, up and down. You can see I gave the amplitude this 10, that way we can see it, and the frequency is 1. For the digital one, I just random generating a digital, and I connected the clock, that way it will be on a certain interval. To do that, it will not be too frequent. So I try to run this right now on Arduino, and we'll see what happens. The nice thing about Visuino, you can actually have, now that we drop the packet, you can actually have it over here as part of the serial, and you can choose it, and you will have the scope, the terminal, and then an instrument. And in the side the instrument, you can see there's the digital, that will be this one, the bit going up and down, on and off, or the analog, which you can see it's from up to 10 to 0. So if I'll connect, and now you can see how it goes back and forth. That's the sine value, right? -1, -9 to 10. And you can see the digital going on, off, on a random value. If I look at the scope, you can actually see it over here much better. Here's your sine value, the red line. And you can see it going up and down, while the binary, the on-off, because it's random, it will not be consistent, but you can see it's on, sometimes off, sometimes on, etc. So now what we want to do is actually use these values and consume them with Delphi. And that's where also the Mitov packages will actually come handy. So let me close this and open a different project that I have. And I believe it's this one. So that way you guys don't need to see me typing or anything like that, but I will go over and show you everything that you need to know over here. So I created a combo box for the post. Sorry, it's not the post, but the port itself. That way we can select what port we want. And then there's another drop box for the baud rate. Then I have a button over here, and all of this you can actually select and search from the toolbar on the right. So if I search for a combo box, you can see the T combo box. If I search for button, here's the T button. I have two labels. Oops. I have two labels here. One is with, we'll put the sign value that we get, and one is the true false. The terminal I already showed you. That's where we output actually what's coming in, and it will be binary in here, because remember the packet itself is binary. Now you remember the ComPort port as well, right? So, and in order for you to have this, you will need to install it with the Mitov software. And then there's the unpack it. So remember, with the Visuino itself over here, we use the packet right over here. That packet. That's when we're packaging everything. On the Delphi, we're using the unpack it to do that. So when I drop it here and I double click on that, you can see the same UI, and I chose a binary float and a binary boolean. So the sign value and a boolean value. Then I use this pin binding manager, and what I did with that is to bind to these labels. So if I double click on it, it opens up the form. I can find the label that I wanted, for example this one, LBL analog, and I look on the caption and I said string sync pin. Same thing is the digital output. I use the sync pin. And what that does, it's actually when you go into the open wire, it generates you those labels over here that I can actually use. So this is just dropping all the components, and then of course the scope is you just searching for scope, and that's with another packet that you will need to install, and that allows you to actually plot things in the scope itself. So after you drop everything here, you can actually start connecting the elements together. So the ComPort, that's where we're getting the serial information. It will will output it to the terminal, and the second one, it will get to the unpack it. And remember, the unpack it, we have a binary float and a binary boolean. The binary float will go to this label. That is, you remember I did the binding for it with the pin binding. So the float will go to this output caption, the label caption, and the boolean will go to the digital label caption. In addition to that, I'm taking the outputs of those of that unpackage to the scope itself. Now there's a little bit more code that I will show you right now. Is that when the form is loading, I'm actually looking at the ComPort element, and I will take all the ports that actually can recognize. So the CB port is the combo box port, and I'm looking at the items to start updating. I'm clearing it in case that it's loading again, and then I'm iterating on the ComPorts using the ComPort.getComPorts function, which is giving me a list of strings. So I'm going through that and adding that port into the combo box, and then I'm ending the updates. Similar things I do for the baud rate. I was a little bit lazy and I just put 9600 because I knew that that's what I'm working on, but you can add as many as you want. So that's, as soon as the form load, that's what it will do. One thing to note, I set up the ComPort as enabled false, so disabled. That way it will not immediately will start generating outputs, and by default it goes to COM1, and this is where it comes the connect button. The connect button will actually check to see if the string or if the caption of the button is connect, then that means we're trying to connect. It will change it to disconnect. We'll clear the terminal, which for some reason it didn't work, so forgive me about that. But we collect the port from the combo box as well as the baud rate. We will assign those to the ComPort, and then we enable it. So now we'll start getting all the information from the serial. If the caption of the button is not connect, which means it's disconnect, we'll change it again to connect. We'll default the port to nothing, the speed, which is the baud rate, to 0, and enable false, which means it will stop listening. And that way you can actually connect, disconnect, disconnect. And that's basically just auto-generated thing. So with that, this is basically all the code there is. So let's run it, and we'll see what we're getting. So here we are, and let's make sure that we have, so Arduino and Visuino is still running. You can see the sign, once again, the sign value is the red line, and then the binary is on and off randomly. So nothing is coming up right now because we're not connected. So let's select ComPort, and the baud rate is 9600, and we'll connect. Oh, just a second, I need to disconnect from Visuino itself. Yeah, let's run that again. All right, so we'll select the port, the baud rate, and connect. So you can see the binary values that are coming from the packet itself, and here are the values when we unpacking in them. So remember that we had it right over here. We're taking the ComPort to the unpack it, and that's outputting into the labels and to the scope. So you can see here is the terminal because it's just binary itself. Then we're taking the output from the unpack it, putting them in the labels, so true, false for the digital, -9 to 10 for the sign value, and we're plotting it into the scope again, the scope itself. So let me try it again, that way you can see it in action again. COM4, 5, baud rate, connect, and you can see how the sign value is going, and here's the binary as on and off, and then we have it over here as well. So that's basically it as far as packaging and unpackaging. I was inspired by another guy that did this video. He did it in Portuguese. His name is Soares. And so if you speak Portuguese, here I will put a link for his explanation down in the description. He is explaining also about structures, which are very similar to package. And he has a really nice video as well. So if you speak Portuguese, I would totally recommending you to look at that. One thing I forgot to actually mention, in the unpack it itself, I had to put the header mark as well for it to know how to actually read. So remember, with the Visuino itself in the packet, I actually put the header as 1, 2, 3, 4 for the bytes. So then over here for the unpack it, I'm also doing 1, 2, 3, 4. If I change this to AAAA, it will not know how to read it. So that is for today, guys. Let me know what you think in the comment section area below, or if you have any questions, I will try to get back to you as soon as I can. Please don't forget to subscribe, that way you can get more notification, and like the video, thumbs it up. It helps a lot. Thanks, guys.